My name's John Twist. I'm from University Motors. I've been working on MGs since working on them since 1968, since when I bought my first one, a TD. And I had a shop with anywhere from, I don't know, 6 to 10 employees, depending on the time of year and the year. And we worked on cars from all over the United States. So I've been writing and doing tech seminars and stuff like that. And Glenn's got much the same story.
Yeah, well, Glenn Lenhard with Glenn's MG Repair in St. Petersburg, Florida. First job as a mechanic was at a British Leyland dealership in 1975. Well, actually 1974 when I think about it. And they were pretty horrible cars at that time, 75 being the worst. And then I just became a mechanic and worked on a lot of different types of cars, but decided to go back to do the MGs and the British stuff about 30 years ago, 40 years ago. And now I'm, again, 11 employees, big shop, and cars come from all over the Southeast US to the shop. And John and I have become good friends over the years.
So
sharing stories.
I met shop stories mainly. We met back in the day. There was a magazine called Abingdon Classics, published by George Butler out of Florida. And George decided he would have a cruise. And now for something completely different, play on Monty Python. And it was an MG technical seminar at sea. So that was right at the beginning of October 1985. And we came down here to Tampa to get on the cruise, and the local MG guy, Tom Jevsak, he ran the club, had a party for all of us who were going on the cruise, and there were 15 of us or so on the cruise, and Glenn was there, and we right away we just started talking, and Glenn said, how can you have a shop where you just work on MGs? I said, you just don't let the Peugeot guy in, And Glenn says, what kind of hoist do you have? And I said, well, real men use jacks and jack stands. Anyway, starting the next month, I had a hoist, and Glenn was restricting his business down to MGs, but mostly British. Anyway, so now we're all set for a question. Rich, you had one.
Yeah, so we've had a donated car, and I saw your video the other day on how to start an MGB or any MG from inside the engine bonnet.
Mm-hmm.
And you said you take the white wire with the brown stripe and touch it up to the bottom portion of the fuse box. It's adjacent. Well, the bottom this other two fuses look jumpered. So you with your hand, you touch the clip on that to the lower right portion of that fuse box, and it looks like you have a jumper cable on the left-hand side. What are you doing with that jumper cable? We're going to try this Saturday. That's why I'm asking.
You told me the other day, does your key turn or not?
No, it doesn't, but
Okay,
I've been told that there's a key lock mechanism on the column, and that may be
what year's
80.
1980. So you got to energize the coil.
Yeah, well, you've got to make sure it's out of gear. You've got to get power to the coil. So you're bringing a jumper wire from the brown wire in the fuse box down.
So the battery in the car is 32 years old as well, but somebody's bringing a battery that's been on charge, and
that's probably a good thing.
Yeah, and I want to check compression on the thing so we can provide numbers. And maybe get it started. I want to energize a fuel pump, ignition, and the starter.
So disconnect one of the leads off the battery in the car, use a pair of jumper cables, and go from your jumper battery positive to positive, even if it's still connected on your battery, and then make the negative cable connection at the door striker, not
by
the battery. It's a nice, good place there, and you can quick disconnect it if you have to.
Well, if you still have an old battery in the car, I mean, trying to jump from a fresh battery to a totally dead battery is just, it's not going to work.
I understand
You need to
that.
get
I
that new
do.
battery.
Yeah.
So
Now, the key is not turning. Is that the problem while you're trying to figure out how to do it?
yeah, I know
the other way
nothing about
around?
MGBs. I plead ignorance, but there's four keys on the keychain, and two of them fit in there, and they don't look anything alike. And they were covered. The keys were covered with rust. They were beneath 30 years of cat feces and leaves and everything. So
Well, take your oil can and just squirt it in
yeah,
the lock.
I got it cleaned up. I put some PB blaster inside the ignition,
Okay.
squirted it in there. But I've been working and playing with plumbing, so I haven't been back at it.
Can you get the key to turn or not?
No, I can't. But
Okay.
I was told by one of the members that there's a column locking mechanism that maybe there's torsion on the steering wheel, which I don't understand because I got it on jack stands without the tires on it, so there shouldn't be much
Yeah,
torsion.
well, you also are going to have to you're going to have to get fuel to this if you want to start it. But if you just check the compression right at the beginning, first thing, you take the plugs out, check the compression, it'll be like 125.0, 125.0. Because when the engine sits, two valves are always open. And if the engine is sat undisturbed for 30 years, two of those valves are all rusty and they're all rusty. So you have to start it. You have to start it and let it run for a while and then check the compression.
Okay, get it going on 2 cylinders and let
Well,
it warm.
and it'll kick into 4 pretty fast.
All right. I have a little facet fuel pump on the side. I was thinking of just taking it in a gas can and energizing it. And
Sure.
okay.
Sure. And the carburetor, is that still got the Stromberg carburetor on it?
Yes, and I haven't opened them up, but I'm sure they're just filled with varnish.
Well, there's a rubber diaphragm.
But you said they, and there should only be one Stromberg on there if it's an original.
It is. I'm thinking MGA or TD. That's what in my head, but extrapolating all my experience on this car that I don't know, but yes.
Well, John was about to tell you about the diaphragm, and that's probably pretty rotten.
So you want to order a new diaphragm, couple of them, and just keep one in the glove box. You can't.
Well, what we're doing, John, I don't want to order anything. Somebody donated to this club, and we're auctioning the car off.
You want to get it going. I mean, you got to invest money in gasoline.
Oh yeah, I can do that.
Okay, so a diaphragm's like $3. We're not buying a carburetor. We're not rebuilding the carburetor. We're just trying to.
So that's a rubber diaphragm that's now no longer. It's cracked and brittle, and the car won't operate without it.
Correct. You can, in an emergency, take a plastic nitrile glove, poke a hole in it, put it down, and screw it into place. But that's
I could do that.
Buy a diaphragm.
Well, we got people coming over Saturday, so I won't have it in time unless somebody in the club who owns an MGB has got
you might.
You might want to try something even before you do that, okay? Because when they sit around carburetor sits around for a long time, everything just gets stiff and seizes, and so you may find that that piston that's underneath that cover of the carburetor with the 4 screws won't even move. It'll just be stuck, which there's no hope that the car is going to run if that piston is stuck. And so the first thing you do is you take those 4 screws off, take that cover off, that little dome, and you'll find a rubber diaphragm, and you'll find a piston with a little shaft sticking up in the middle, and pull that out of the carburetor. If it doesn't pull out, your car is not going to start no matter what you do. And you've got to do something with that carburetor, or you're dead in the water.
Okay.
It's trying to get you to do some sort of a.
I'm going to be farther up the MG learning curve.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
it's going to be fun.
Even before you do this, you take all the plugs out.
They're out. I've misted the motor a month, 3 weeks ago.
Spin the engine into your oil pressure.
I can spin it. I can spin it I can turn it with the fan, which is, I think.
Yeah, but I mean, with your jumper cable and your wire, and it won't go ram because there's no compression. It'll just go ram, and it'll just spin, somebody's watching the oil pressure gauge, and you don't even attempt to start it until you got some oil pressure there.
Right. I know that story. Okay. Thank you.
And then I'll be on. You're doing this Saturday?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm driving back to Gulf Shores all day Saturday, so I'll be in my car and be pleased as punch to talk.
Steer
Help
us
you
on
out
our
if you
way.
have one or more than a couple questions.
Well, I'm hoping we got a meeting there, and I I invited folks over after the
Yeah.
meeting. Kathy's got a case of beer ordered, and we'll just play with this and see if we can get it running. That way, if we can get it to cough and throw over, we can tell someone we have a running car that we're auctioning off,
If you
which is
spray carburetor cleaner down the throat, carburetor cleaner or ether down the throat, it'll always start.
I have ether.
Yeah. Okay.
With
Now
my freebasing days.
that'll wreck the carburetor diaphragm sometimes, but if just to see if it's gonna snap and start moving.
Okay.
Hey, John,
Yeah.
along with what Rich is asking you on one of your videos, I have a 76. The one that was donated to the club was an 80. On one of your videos, you talked about taking the jumper line and going from the bottom fuse to the fuse above it if you wanted to keep it running. So the white wire with the brown tracer would start it, would turn it over, but
Right.
you had to have that jumper. Is the 80 the same way? Can we do
No,
that jumper?
the 80's got a relay on the ignition. So you have to energize the relay. So the cars are all the same from 70 through
Yes, Steve,
76.
I'm in the middle of a Zoom meeting right now. Can I call
And
this number back when I'm done?
just a minute.
Oh yeah, I'll call you back probably an hour.
You know what I'm going to do here? I've got to.
Thank
It's not anything about Rich, but I've got a mute all button, and I'm going to use it right now. Everybody's muted. When you want to unmute yourself, just press your space bar for as long as you're speaking. Anyway, 70 through 76 has got the 4-fuse box, and if you jumper the 2 bottom fuses, then the fuel pump works. The whole ignition system comes alive. The whole green circuit comes alive. The turn signals and the heater motor and the wipers and all that kind of stuff
That should work on a 77 through 80 also, though. It's just going to bypass the relay. Pretty sure you're just backfeeding the white circuit. All the relay does is run brown over to the fuse box.
Okay. Yeah. All right. I'm not sure 77 through 79 though, because that's a different wiring. 80 is back to something more normal. Anyway,
80 was a little different.
Leyland, what did you we were sitting here cogitating. Did I answer any question there? You got to press your space bar to get unmuted. We're waiting for Leyland.
I'm talking to myself. I'm sorry.
That's right.
Yeah, you answered my question. Thank you.
Okay. All right.
But another quick question for you. You were talking about the facet pump that we're using. The facet pump spec says it pumps at 24 gallons an hour. The SU pump spec says it pumps at 17 to 18. Does that matter on our cars, that difference?
Not at all. There's a facet pump that we offer as an option in our shop. It's called an interrupter pump. It's not that little square thing that rattles.
That's what I have.
It's called, yeah, those things are horrible. They're horrible things, noisy, rattly things. They lose their prime easily, then you're always having trouble. We use a facet pump that's called an interrupter pump. It's tall, cylindrical pump with a fuel filter built into it that you can take out and clean. And they're about the half a price of an SU pump. And the marine industry uses them, boating guys, I mean, everybody uses them. And it was actually a copy of a Bendix race car pump from the 50s. And they're beautiful pumps. You can buy them all over the internet from different places for around $140, $150.
Okay.
That's what we use. instead of those little square rattly things that are always
I've got 4 layers of rubber between that and my car, so hopefully I don't.
Yeah. But yeah, volume is not critical in an MG.
But the
It's
pressure,
just you got to have 3 to 4 pounds in that range of pressure, but volume is not critical. And you're not using that much gas, that tiny little engine with a tiny little carburetor.
I just wanted to make sure it wasn't overfilling it.
It can overpressurize it if the pressure is too high. So though they do sell those little square ones with different pressures, so you got to
The pressure is okay. The pressure is 4 pounds.
All right, that's perfect.
4 pounds.
Perfect.
But it was the volume I was worried about.
No,
It's okay.
And one last thing, John, I'm the guy you helped yesterday on the phone, so thank you so much.
Oh, what did we do? You had something about wiring.
The distributor wasn't lining up on number 1.
Oh,
like
yeah, sure,
you
sure.
helped me get that going. So just I wanted to say, put a face with the name and say thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Okay, so who else has got a question here? Here we go.
Joe.
Yeah,
Joe.
yeah, Glenn, you had mentioned you don't care for the inexpensive facet. I've got for $76,
Mhm.
it's a hell of a deal compared to the SUs.
Oh no, they are. I use a better facet.
Yes,
That
yes.
doesn't make all the rattling noise. In fact, the facets, the interrupter pumps, I've sold over 300 of them over the last years.
Really?
Not a single one has failed.
Wow.
And in fact, the pumps they were based on, which was a Bendix from the 50s, I have original Bendix pumps from the 50s in my parts room that if I hook them up to power, they will move fuel. And they've been sitting for 50 years.
Wow.
Now that little pump was licensed to Hitachi. So all through the 70s, every Datsun ever made with a carburetor had that pump on there, a Hitachi version of that pump. Then Land Rover started putting it on their trucks because they were tired of breaking down in the middle of the desert. So you started seeing them on Land Rovers. So it's just, it's a quieter pump than your little square rattly one.
Right. I have a facet with a Weber, and I mean, for me, I realize it's not traditional. I get
We
it.
don't care about that. We don't care.
But I'm telling you, my little car, you guys could probably relate to it. My little 76 that I bought from a wonderful district judge out of Buffalo, New York, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the car had been his personal toy forever for that little 76. And it had a Japanese Mikuni carburetor on it.
Okay.
I was no more familiar with, I mean, the only thing I knew about Mikuni carburetors, they had them on motorcycles forever.
Mm-hmm.
And the difficulty I had, no one in Houston could work on a Mikuni carburetor. So what it came down to was, instead of trying to find someone that could work on a Mikuni, just take the Mikuni off and put a Weber on instead.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been basically the car starts every single time ever since I got rid of the Mikuni.
Yeah.
And the facet little pump works perfect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the little downdraft 2-barrel Weber is unbeatable. We use them all the time. We use them all the time.
Gas mileage, I'm getting probably 25, 28 miles to a gallon. I love it.
Yeah. I install a lot of them because not everybody has access to a John Twist or a Glenn Lenhard where we understand the Stromberg and can make it work.
Exactly.
But almost any Chevy mechanic, Ford mechanic knows what a Holly Carter is, and that's what a Weber is.
Yeah.
They know how to take care of them.
Yeah.
So I've got to ask, do you have a front anti-sway bar on your 76?
Yes, I do.
Okay,
Thank
all
you,
right.
John
Good.
Swift. As a matter of fact, John, we put a 3/4 inch sway bar on 4 months ago on it,
Okay,
and I'm very glad we did.
that's the single best improvement you can do to an MG is to put that front anti-sway bar on.
Oh, let me tell you, it really has made a big difference, and I'm very happy we did it.
I think they were only optional for a couple years there, 75, 76 or something.
70
Didn't they start putting them back on standard again?
77 through 80, you got a front and rear.
Yeah.
but 74.5 through 76, I don't know, they took them all, I don't know, price. I don't know, trying to save some money. And it's like, oh no, 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 because the ride height, is a little taller.
Yep.
And so the
Yep.
pitch and roll is a little more. So yeah, it's just you gotta have it.
Well, and Glenn, for you guys in Florida, probably one of the best investments I ever made on that little car of ours. I have a Bimini top.
Oh, I have one for my
For the
MGA.
summer, for the summertime, we love it.
I've driven through rainstorms in the mountains in my MGA
Yes.
with that Bimini top. It's just
Yeah.
fine. My elbow gets wet. Big deal.
There's
Love
something
this
about
guy.
something about the guy that was making them isn't making them anymore.
He is making them
Ed-
again.
Ed Kirkland out of Tallahassee.
Yeah, but he makes one at a time and he will not do any sort of a volume. He doesn't want to go into business. He said, this is a hobby. I don't want it to be a business.
Right.
Yeah.
But
So
it's a
there is
great
somebody
product.
making them now?
He's back at it again, I believe. Yeah. There's a lot of stories,
Okay,
oh,
'cause
now he's not doing
I
it. Now
emailed him
he's
a few
doing it.
months ago and he said no.
I think he runs hot and cold, to tell you the truth, because I've heard both stories.
I want a Union Jack one.
The
He
famous
told me to
story,
pound sand.
yeah, the story behind a lot of that. If
I
you
told him
guys-
he could sell hundreds of those to Moss Motors. He said, "Oh, no, 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 no.
Oh,
I
yeah,
don't need that
yeah.
kind of pressure." But
Well,
yeah,
if
you're
you
right.
go look-
I love
Go
mine.
look at the original Dr. No James Bond movie
Hmm.
in '64. I swear to you, look at the car. It's got a Bimini top on it.
Really?
Yeah,
I knew there's an MGB in there,
because
but never
it's
looked
all
at it.
because it's from the Bahamas. That
Mm.
was the origination point for the Bimini top.
Hmm.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That's a tidbit, but
Yeah.
it's the original Dr. No James Bond.
Yeah, you can drive. Yeah, I can drive my MGA in the hottest day of Florida with the top down and just have that Bimini, and you're just as cool and comfortable as you could
Let me
be.
tell you, absolutely.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, you can imagine Houston, Texas for us in the summer.
Same thing. Yeah.
Oh, you're dying. If you don't have that Bimini, you're dying.
Hey guys, this is Pete Standy. Can you
Yeah,
hear me?
Pete,
Loud and
yes.
clear, Pete.
Yeah, I can't see you. Can you see me?
No, I can't see you, but we can hear you, so it'll work.
Okay. I just had a question about that Expendix fuel pump. Is that a rotary pump or a diaphragm pump like the SU?
It's a single piston pump.
Okay.
And just a little piston goes up and down inside a bore. There's one check ball that's held in with a clip. You can unscrew the bottom of the pump. There's a filter a huge filter that pulls out. It's made out of nylon mesh. You can clean it back in and put it back in. Right next to the filter is the clip, and you can see the barrel and the little check ball. You can pull the little clip out, take the check ball out, and clean it. I've never had to do it. I've had one of those on my MGA and one on my wife's MG 1100 literally for decades. And I've never had to touch them. I've never even cleaned the filters. They're such a huge.
I've got a similar scenario with a Carter rotary pump. I've had one on my Sprite race car for 20 years, and it hasn't let me down. In fact, I'm putting one. Well, in fact, I put one on the MGA and I put one on another Sprite that I had.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Carter rotaries were nice.
Yeah, rotaries, and they don't tick.
Well, the little Bendix interrupter pump, it's very quiet. It runs continuously, but you can't really hear it. It's very, very subtle. And we mount them in rubber with rubber mounts from a Volkswagen fuel pump, so they're isolated, and you don't hear them. They're just wonderful pumps.
Okay,
And it's the best part is they're half the price of those SU pumps now. SU's gotten crazy.
Yeah, and then the other problem with the SU pumps, you never know whether to do a points pump or a solid state pump.
If it's a points pump, you can make it run another 1.5 miles by beating it with your fist.
Yeah.
But one of those Hall's effect pumps, I just tried to fix one the other day, and it chattered for a second and then quit, and I don't like that electronic stuff.
It's mysterious.
It's
Yeah, I got a Healy 3000, and you take a hammer and open up that one of those little rear seat squabs and just bang it every time you stall, you know.
Yeah.
Well,
That,
we do
that's
we do a lot of Heelys at our shop, and years ago the Healy owners would have us install a second SU pump
yeah,
because they knew the first one was going to go bad, and they could have a little toggle switch and just turn. So and that's what the Healy people did. And I said, stop it, take both of them out and put in this interrupter pump, and you'll never have another fuel pump failure, and you'll be done. And so we've got the Healy company people on board, and we put them the same pump, believe it or not, in a Jaguar V12 E-Type, and those V12 E-Types came with a double-ended SU fuel pump.
yeah,
SU knew one was going to go bad, so they just built two in the same body. And
yeah,
that's what the E-Types had, V12. So we take that $800 double-ended SU pump, throw it away, and put the same facet interrupter, and they run just fine.
yeah.
Lynn,
That's good.
who do you buy the interrupter from? Who do you buy your facet from?
Pegasus.
Pegasus, I think
Yeah,
is
I
what
was
we're
gonna say,
getting
that's
from.
why I get mine, Pegasus Auto Racing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a very good price. We've also bought them from marine supply places.
Really?
Yeah, marine supply, but they put them on boats. I mean, can you be more reliable than a boat fuel pump?
Oh, yeah,
You can't
exactly.
be, So
Exactly.
we were buying them from a marina supply for a while.
Got it.
You can get on the internet, Amazon, and you can find little $40 Chinese versions of the things, but I've never had the heart to try one of those.
Right. Right.
I
Can,
think there was an article about that in the latest MG Driver magazine, MGB, the North American MGB monthly publication.
uh-huh.
That might
I
have been my
think.
article. I wrote an article on it.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Yep.
there was quite a lengthy article about how great they were.
Yep. Yeah,
I guess that's the same pump then.
that was mine. Yeah. Yeah. It has a part number and everything in there.
Yeah, but
I have a question if I'm not out of turn or anything.
no, go ahead.
I'm always wondering, I'm in a car, my wife's driving, so pardon the background. I'm always wondering about gaskets. This might be a subject for another time, but I know you like the black Permatex, and how do you know whether to put a 1/4 inch bead or just put a smear on one end, or do you put it on both sides when you're putting something together? And there's the paper thin and there's the thick core gaskets. Is there any guidance on rule of thumb of how to put a gasket on the correct way?
Well, I'll give you mine, but John can start. And
So
we'll see
let's
how that compares.
We'll start with the valve cover gasket, because that's a real easy one. The Moss valve cover gasket for an MGB is a beautiful gasket. Nice thick rubber or cork, great big thick cork. So you get the old gasket off the valve cover, lay a bead of the right stuff or ultra black in there. You can use other stuff. I hate blue gasket compound because it looks ugly. We used to use clear silicone sealant, RTV sealant. That worked just fine. But the black stuff is made especially for the engines. So you put the black on the valve cover, push the cork into the valve cover, and then put the thing on a tabletop and press on it so you're sure that it's all flat all the way around, and do what else you're going to do. And then 20 minutes later or an hour later, whenever it is, take that and paint the bottom of it with grease. Just daub it with grease and put it on the cylinder head, and you can take that gasket on and off the engine another 50 times.
We do the same thing. Many years ago, I started using well, we call it Gorilla Snot. It's weather strip adhesive, 3M, black. And that's what we use. We glue the gasket on a similar manner with the right stuff. The right stuff is the best gasket maker. And when we use it on like a flat paper gasket, I use my fingers and I just smear it on, make a coating of it. No bead. You just smear it on the paper. You're helping the paper, and you're adding a layer of it. You don't want a bead on there. You want to just smear
On both
it
sides.
Yes, on both sides.
So
Yeah,
I
except the valve cover.
I did
Yeah,
that.
because the valve cover you want to take off
Right.
Right.
eventually.
I
Yeah.
I did that on just today. I was building some gearboxes and I put a bead of the right stuff around the just the outside edge of the gasket and use my thumb and forefinger and probably see some of the gasket left on my fingernails. And I went round and round and round the gasket, kept moving the gasket and back and forth, and then flipped the gasket over and did it again and flipped it over and did it again. Getting the goal is to have a very, very thin smear of gasket compound on either side of that gasket.
Okay.
Now,
Hey guys, I got another question. It's Pete Sandy here. Hey, what's the considered opinion on roller rockers? I don't think they actually improve performance, but they may improve the longevity and the time between checking the valves. The valve to rocket height.
I think they will improve the pocketbook of the guy who sold them to you.
Okay.
for $600, I'd buy a front anti-sway bar. I'm not a fan of having a stereo in your car because the sound of the engine should be music enough for your ears. But for the $600, I'd buy a stereo. No, that's just total waste of money. 100% waste of
Why,
money.
John?
Because if you put it on a dynamometer, there's no change in the power output. And I had one break on me once, okay, because they're aluminum. Some of the part of the rocker is aluminum. It snapped, and it was catastrophic, ruined the engine. So I'm no fan of them at all. I want to go back to gaskets just for a minute though, and then we'll come back up. Anything that you put on the car that has to do with water, the heater control valve, the thermostat gasket, the water pump gasket, you don't use any compound, you just use grease. Just grease. Grease on the gasket, grease on the bolts, just grease. Just gob it with grease. And when you want to take it off again, it just comes off easily. It's nice. The mating surfaces have to be parallel. They have to be nice and smooth, because the grease isn't going to fill up a pocket. But those three areas. Then when you go to take whatever the water pump back off or the heater control valve back off next year or 5 years from now, it'll come off just effortlessly.
One interesting thing we see on gaskets is they do shrink. So if that gasket's been on the shelf at some parts store for a long time and you try to put it on and the holes don't line up, well, it's just a tree, it's just paper. So you wet it in the sink and it will go right back to its original size and all the holes will line up. You dab it off so it's not soaking wet, and that gasket is back to its original size. And we've seen this over the years. There were some SU carburetor gaskets that were coming in that were pre-shrunk, and we had to reconstitute them with water.
I did that today. I did that today on the gearbox on two different gaskets. Threw it in the sink, and then it gets all floppy loose, and you damp it off so you can get the gasket compound. Another comment: when you're building an engine, you've got the valve cover and you've got the sump. So between the valve cover and the gasket, and between the sump and the gasket, you use your gasket compound, the black stuff, the black goo. But the side that goes up against the engine, between the gasket and the front engine bearing plate, or between the gasket and the bottom of the engine, you use grease so that you can pull it off effortlessly when you find out you don't have oil pressure or something's wrong or the cam timing's wrong or something. It won't leak. Some gaskets do not leak. I just talked to a guy the other day. Well, I got to change my pan gasket because it's leaking. I said, no, it's not. He kind of looked at me, but if something's leaking, you can go to Napa and you can buy the dye, and it's a ball camp part number. and then look at that under black light. Maybe you've got one left over from your hippie days, and it will fluoresce like an electric banana wherever the oil leak is. But it's not the oil pan gasket that's leaking; it's the valve cover, because all oil goes down and all oil goes back. You know it goes back because the whole undercarriage is wet from oil. And that's why our MGs are still on the road. They're self-undercoated. So anyway, back to roller rockers. I here's
John, what's the advertised benefit of the roller rocker, and what isn't it living up to?
well,
Okay,
a real rocker wipes, right? As it's working and it pushes the valve stem down, it's wiping, not very far, because the valve's only getting pushed on 3/8 of an inch, but it's wiping, and therefore it wears the underside of the rocker, and it's metal against metal friction. So if you get a roller, there's less friction.
It was
So that's the advertised benefit.
it's
and
kind
you're
of
saying it
started by
doesn't.
it was kind of started by the muscle car guys. And
yeah.
yeah.
I've got a Sprite that revs to 7,200. I got to use roller rockers because otherwise it's terrible on the rockers that BMC supply. You've got to have properly forged and heat treated rockers to compete with roller rockers, as far as I'm
But you're
concerned.
you're not driving this on the street.
No. It's a race car.
Yeah, right.
That's a whole different. It's a whole different ball
Yeah,
game.
I was just going to say 7,000 RPMs in a Sprite. How long's that?
So,
been
John,
driving?
why is that a different ball game, please?
Well, it just all the considerations. My formula, which is absolutely a true formula. I'm waiting to be recognized internationally for
For your
this.
Nobel
is
Prize.
dollars equal power times reliability times efficiency, all divided by emissions. So if you are trying to get the power up in your engine, either the reliability is going to go down, the efficiency is going to go down, or the emissions are going to go
Money
up.
goes up.
But if you add the dollars, then you can do a whole lot of stuff. And since horsepower equals torque times RPM, you're going to get more power at 7,200 RPM than you are at 5,800 RPM. That's the reliability. You've got to really dump a lot of money into it, and you got to do all kinds of stuff.
So I don't understand your answer, John. And I'm trying, so a race car engine at higher RPM sees more service. We'll just leave it at that. And a roller rocker is advantageous, even because of less friction. But you say the quality isn't there. You both said throw them
Well,
away.
if this gentleman's engine's revving to 7,200, he's got a nice set of roller rockers. Yeah.
So you're saying that the benefit of a roller rocker is only in the quality of that. And if you have a high quality roller rocker, you have a better situation than with that
then
forged steel.
then you're not eating up as much energy wiping the valve. You're not creating as much heat, right? And the Sprite guy here is saying that the BMC rockers, the factory ones, just won't handle the speed. And they I don't know if they're braking. They might break, but you have to go to a better rocker. And in this case, it's a roller rocker.
I think the thing to remember too is a race engine is not a long-lived engine. I mean, most racers that are serious racers and are winning, they don't use an engine more than 1 or 2 races, and it's coming apart because they are that sensitive to wear. It's a high stress situation. And John and I work on street cars and just moderate cars, and we want people to have a reliable car that doesn't break. So we have to balance things like lightweight flywheels, which are another waste of money. Roller rockers don't belong on street cars. Side draft Webers don't belong on street cars. So we look at a lot of different things in that respect. And there's one other thing I just thought about roller rockers. Valves are supposed to be turning, and that normal rocker is supposed to turn that valve in a circle as it's running. So you lose that ability too on a roller rocker.
Yeah,
So
I agree. You lose the revolution of the valve,
yeah.
but as far as I'm concerned, if you reduce the friction on a race engine and you move it down to a lower revving street engine, then it's got to be beneficial in terms of performance and of fuel economy.
I've never checked the mileage on any of my MGs for 40 years because I don't care if they got 3 miles per gallon. I'm going to own that car.
My guy that I work with up in Michigan, Carl Heidemann, has done. He's just going to buy
I showed those curves as I told you
Okay,
in our
yeah.
meeting last month.
And Carl's done. I think he told me last time I talked to him, maybe 1,200 or 1,300 holes on a dynamometer. This is an accelerator, an accelerating dynamometer. And there's very little that you can do to the engine to show anything at the rear wheels. And a normal MGB at the rear wheels gets around 60 horsepower. Is that all? Yes, that's all. A normal MGB. So the most we ever pushed one to was 75 as measured on the dynamometer. But if you put a supercharger on it, 90, just like that. Okay. And the supercharger, people say, oh, I'd have to rebuild the engine first. But you don't, because you don't use the supercharger very much. Well, the first month you get it, you're going to use it all the time because you're you're so excited. It's so much fun. But after that, going down the road at 60 miles an hour is 60 miles an hour. It's changing your acceleration, and using the horsepower to accelerate more quickly. And after a period of time, you use it occasionally, but not much. Your car probably idles more than you're using the supercharger.
Hey, John, this is Gavin. What about cold air intakes
No,
and improvement? You don't believe in that?
no, not on the street car. Not on the street car. I've seen them before. I've seen ribbed hoses or ribbed, like like a dryer vent. It's like all I know about air is it's like liquid and it likes a nice smooth passageway. And when you're dealing with race cars, yes, then the cold air is denser, but just out on the road, and I've seen inlet plenums about that big around. I'm not sure you can get enough air through there. So, especially on the end of a 4-foot piece of PVC tubing or something. So,
Yeah.
Don't want to talk
But
that.
you're advocating what I was hearing there though, the supercharger, you would say it's expensive. I know it's like 5,000 or 6,000 to
well,
do it.
it is the silver bullet at a platinum
Yeah.
price.
And that's the money you're talking about when you came back to your relationship earlier on. Got it.
Right. So how many of those superchargers
I
have you?
think we've installed maybe 15 superchargers, and they've all been rock steady. And of course, one thing to remember, $5,000, but you're getting a brand new carburetor with that supercharger. So there's $1,000 right off the top. I think the first supercharger I put on, I had an MGB LE, and I met John at a GOF up in North Florida, and he hadn't driven one yet. So I threw him the keys. I said, take mine around the block. And he got in the car.
He didn't say around the block. He said, take it for a drive.
Oh, I'll take it for a drive. Well, he was gone for an hour because he was having so much fun. And that's what we do is the reason I did that is my customers are asking me, should I put a supercharger on my car? Well, I didn't know. So I bought one of Moss's superchargers very early on. I put it in my car. And the next 5 customers that asked me, should I buy a supercharger? I handed them the keys to my car. And they took my car for a drive. And when they got back, they wrote a check. and it said, order it.
So
Wow.
there's a company in the UK that sell, I think they're called VMAX, and they do supercharger you can put on the 1800 engine, and it's something like 3,000 to 2,500, and people it's not so common knowledge about it, but it does seem to be quite effective. Have you heard about that? I think it's VCart or VMAX or something like that.
One of my
It's the name
customers
of the company.
bought a supercharger from Australia. That was for an MGB. Horrible. Just
Right.
thing. No
So
power.
the Moss
Just-
one you'd recommend.
Oh yeah.
Well,
Okay.
we know what we're dealing with. There's
Mhm.
also a turbocharger that I've seen advertised out of Australia. But it's just like if you have trouble, what are you going to do? You know, you gotta stay up until midnight to call them and ask them a question. They're going to come to your house and fix it. So
Well, I wouldn't.
Hey, John, I was on superchargers. I was toying with the idea of putting one on my 1600, but I modified that per you and Carl's class to 9.5 to 1. And I was cautioned by somebody not if you've monkeyed with compression ratio at all, don't go there. You have a comment on that?
Glenn does.
Well, when we build an engine for a supercharger, we try to keep the compression moderate, 8.5, maximum 9 to 1. We're building an engine right now, and I inadvertently ordered pistons that were not quite the right CC, so we found that I built a cylinder head for it, a later model cylinder head, and we were going to have a 12 to 1 engine on a supercharger, so we can't do that. So I'm digging out of my stash the older like 63 through 67 cylinder heads, much bigger combustion chamber, and we'll end up with about a 9 to 1 engine, and that's about max on a supercharged engine. But more important is the distributor, because if you don't have a distributor that matches you want the right advance curve. There's one company that sells a vacuum advance specifically for the Moss supercharger. And that vacuum advance, if you put on the distributor, you'll just from that vacuum advance that he's engineered to match the supercharger, you'll get another 4 horsepower, 5 horsepower. So the distributor is critical. And we also, if we're putting a supercharger on a car that's already running, we will pull the head off, put a new head gasket on it, and use the ARP improved racing head studs, because that's what I did on my car. I intentionally put my supercharger on an untouched engine to see what would happen, see where the weak point was. And the weak point was after 1 year of heavy driving, I blew a head gasket. So now you don't have to
Is that
rebuild
the
the engine
danger,
with it.
blowing the head gasket?
What's that?
Is that the danger, blowing the head gasket?
It is a danger if you got an old head gasket. So the supercharger really stresses thing. You don't want to have a 40-year-old head stud on your supercharged engine. So
I have the ARP studs.
uh-huh.
I have the pay-in gasket, but
Yeah.
I'm at 9.5 to 1.
Perfect.
Is that
absolutely perfect?
9.5 to 1 is okay?
Yeah. But
Okay,
you know what?
I thought you said 9 just a moment ago.
You know, the difference is if you keep it in tune, if you put a good distributor in there and watch your advance curve, don't over advance it, keep the mixture rich enough. One of the things Moss does on their carburetors is they use really, really heavy oil on their damper, like John likes to use. And they do that to get extra fuel during full throttle. So that extra fuel also helps to keep that combustion temperature down.
Now you're saying a different distributor or a well operating? Because I just had one
Different.
rebuilt by that fella in New Hampshire.
Yeah, well, you got to call him back if you're going to get a blower. You call him back and just ask for a one for the supercharger.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
What's his name? I can't remember.
Rob Medinsky.
That's it. Thank you.
Yeah, he's the one who came out and developed the supercharger vacuum advance. So if you're going to do it, you want to send the thing back to him, tell him I'm adding a supercharger. He'll change the curve. He'll add the supercharger vacuum advance, and then you're off and flying.
So we used to give this, Carl and I gave this seminar, Tuning for Speed, and it was a 3-day seminar. And the first day was make your car run as well as you possibly can make it run. the way it's sitting right now. Don't take anything apart. You don't have to buy anything exotic. Just make it run as well as it possibly can. And we had a guy drive from Hershey, Pennsylvania to Grand Rapids, Michigan. It was 800 miles. It was a 67B. And when we did the tune-up, we checked the timing, and his maximum timing was 27 before top dead center, where it was. So I set it to 32, which is where I think it should be. We went and checked it on the dyno the next day and got 62 horsepower. And then Carl said, let's set the timing back and see what difference it makes. We lost 5 horsepower in 5 degrees of timing. Now that's at the sweet spot. It isn't linear. You can't continue to increase or decrease your power by changing the timing. But right there at the sweet spot, it's dramatic. And so, you know, some people, if you just get your car tuned up well, you know, you're going to go as fast as you want. Now, that's not 7,200 RPM with a Sprite engine. You know, that's
pushing it.
That's David Anton and David.
There you go.
Vizard.
It can be done. The A series
Vizard-
engines were very flexible. I mean,
Plus
you can
it's
do a lot
so-
more with them than a B motor.
But it's the same engine. It's just smaller. And the B engines, you start off with the first MGB engine after they went to 1800. You get a great big long piston with 5 rings on it, a great big heavy rod, offset, just crazy, and a great big heavy crank, and big heavy lifters that have to bounce up, up and down.
3 main bearings.
3 mains, a dual chain, real heavy springs on the head to keep the lifter on the cam. And throughout the next 20 years, by the time we're up to 1980, the rods are incredibly lightened. The pistons have only got 3 rings. Interestingly, the crank's got huge bells on it. The counterweights on an 80.
Some are weird, yeah.
Real weird. I don't get that. But we got bucket lifters that guy runs in a Sprite unless he's running a roller cam, and a single chain and lighter springs on the head. And the engines, it doesn't take anywhere nearly as much energy to spin the engine as it did on the older ones. Therefore, of all that energy that you're making, more of it is available to get to the rear wheels. Somebody else got a question?
Hey, John, I got a quick one for you, I hope.
Yeah.
It's I have a 69 engine, a GH engine in my car. And I have HS4s being rebuilt, and you've helped me with this a little bit. I had the guy that rebuilt them to 67 specs with the AAE needles. And when I get them and I put them on, I'm expecting everything to run wonderfully. If I add velocity stacks to the air intake, do I need to change the needles?
Do you have factory air cleaners?
That's another question. I don't have any air cleaners for these carburetors, and I was going to ask you which ones I should get.
You're putting it on a 76, right?
It's a 69 engine in a 76 car.
The 76 cars, so you can't put on the factory air cleaners because of the brake booster.
Yeah, you put on the K&N domed shaped air K&N air filters. That's all that really fit in that car with that brake booster. They're pricey, but they're great air filters.
So
GIenn.
Carl did a run with stub stacks, and he also did a run with the conical $100 a piece oil wetted
K&N.
K&Ns. There was no difference between those, and either the conical filters or the stub stacks improved performance over no air cleaners at all. He had no explanation on why the K&N filters seem to do the same as the stub stacks. But yeah, stub stacks are nice because it's 2 horsepower that when you take that aluminum piece off the 74 and a half MGBs backwards, back to 1962. There's an aluminum disc about that big around on the back side of the air filter that's got a built-in stub stack in it. If you take those off, you lose 2 horsepower. So stub
So
stacks
if I
will
put these,
help.
when I put these carburetors on, I don't think it's going to have, because it has a Weber on it right now. So I'm converting it back to SUs.
Mhm.
So I don't think it's going to have those. And I was just wondering if I do get those velocity stacks, or you call them stub what?
Same thing, stub stacks.
They're a little
because,
short.
because they're short.
Right.
Some
Right.
of trumpets, you can get trumpets that are like that long, but
That's
you can't because you got a 76 in the boosters.
what Weber do you have on the car now?
32, 36.
Okay, all right. Just as long as you don't have that DCOE, because they're horrible. They don't run well.
Well, this one's okay. It's just it doesn't it wants to stutter off a stop. So I've got to feather it with gas.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I just want to get back to the SUs. I loved SUs and
They're
the car
really
came
good.
with this and I didn't want it.
Right.
What sort of exhaust manifold are you going to run?
It has a 3-into-1 header on it, and
No.
it has an aluminum head.
To get rid of the header and find a factory exhaust manifold, which is the end pipes it's a double Y. So the center outlet comes down to one exhaust pipe, and 1 and 4 come down to another pipe. Carl did this on his and there is a slight improvement on with the factory exhaust. You cannot get better than a factory exhaust. There's no header that makes the car run better.
Yeah.
So
The cast iron is a tuned header, basically.
yep.
It's
And all headers are hot, all headers are noisy, all headers leak,
They will blow the gasket every
all
time.
headers are headaches.
Yeah.
I hate headers.
Okay, that's great information. Thank you. I will get
And there's plenty of
69 exhaust manifold.
Well, it has to match your inlet manifold. There's 2 different thicknesses where it bolts up against the head, either 7/16, which is the HIF manifold, or 9/16, which is the HS carburetor manifold. You just got to look and see which manifold you've got.
Or use shims to make up the difference when you're bounding them. There's always another answer.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. That helps a lot. But going back to the carburetor, if I put the velocity stacks on there, do I need to change the needles?
No.
I don't have to enrich them or anything?
No.
Okay.
I'd like to further that question, John. That's and Glenn, I'm sorry. Needles. It's like the last frontier for me. It's something I know nothing about. My cars have whatever they came on them. What would you recommend?
It's amazing to me that those needles still work okay. I mean, on a TD, you buy an ES needle. I mean, they were running 80 octane pool gasoline and a 7.25 to 1 compression ratio on the TC, and yet today you buy the ES needles. Now you can get some richer needles, you can do more, but just the original spec, it seemed to work just fine. And when you're comparing needles, you got to compare the difference between the hole and the needle. You know, you got to get the cross section of the area.
So what? To me, it's richer or leaner. I mean,
yes, and the only way to tell what's going on is to put a bung in the exhaust pipe, go out and drive the car, and you're looking for
oxygen.
Your 14 to 1
fuel
ratio, you know, and if it turns out that at some speed it's running too lean, well then how high is the piston running? I don't know. Put substacks on it and a GoPro camera under the you know, and put some notches. I don't know how. I mean, because you look at those needle charts and it says low speed, mid range, high speed. It's like,
what do you do?
Call
Just,
Joe Curto is what I
yeah,
do.
call Joe.
All right.
Joe, what needle do we use for this and
Yeah.
this and that?
And when you say this and this and that, that's my question, Glenn. What is this and this and that?
Exhaust back pressure is critical. You know, if you've got a big 2-inch exhaust pipe and a stupid little
Okay.
muffler, it's going to take a different amount of fuel. That engine is going to take a different amount of fuel than if you got a nice proper 1.5-inch exhaust system with a resonator and muffler. You know, so back pressure is critical.
Okay.
You
That's
know,
one.
air filtration. Now we did an MGC that was running perfectly, and we put K&N air filters in there, and it ran too lean because there wasn't enough
Sure.
restriction on the K&N air filters, because you need that
Hmm.
restriction to get more fuel flowing through. So we had to richen up the needles in the MGC when we added the K&N air filters. It's a inexact
So,
science.
so I'm where's that's my confusion. I can richen up the needles, or I can richen up the mixture by
No, the
another
mixture,
means.
the needles are work all the way through the range. Your jet height has more to do with idling nicely.
Okay, I missed
Okay, and
that
the
concept.
needles work throughout the range. That's what I read in an SU manual. I've never put anything on a flow bench. I've never had an oxygen sensor in my exhaust. I've never gone out, and I've had the tailpipe bung, and I have tried to do that, but
Excuse me, then. I'll finish this question. I don't want to monopolize your time, but how do you know when you need? How do either you know when? Yeah, I need. Besides calling, what makes you call Joe Curto? How do you know when that's an issue?
When we've ruled everything else out.
Okay,
And
that's
the
that's
car is
fair.
surging or doing
All right.
strange things, or if the plugs are fouling, you know, because the road test is the best way to gauge what your car is doing. So you make sure the car spark plugs are clean and nice and new, and you take the car out on the road and you do 50 miles an hour with it, 40 miles an hour, and you drive steady. You shut the key off without locking the steering, and you pull to the side of the road. You don't even want it to let it come down to idle. So you get to the side of the road and you pull your spark plugs out and you see what they look like. If they're nice and tan or whitish, um, they're perfect. If they're black or brown, they're too rich. If they're white like porcelain, they're too lean. So that's
Yeah,
that's
Say,
a
say
quick
that
test.
again.
Pete Sandy here. That's exactly the way we do it. I've got an MGA and we do it exactly the same. And if it's running too lean, we take a little bit of sandpaper, well, not sandpaper, wet and dry, and we reduce the size
The
of
diameter.
the needle.
Yeah, put it in a drill and twirl it, and
Exactly.
then guess about where that needle was laying, and guess how much metal to take off.
Well,
yeah.
then you do it again and you find it's over rich, you know.
Hmm.
Say that again, though, Glenn. How do you do that test again? You drive it and then you do what?
Okay, you've got clean spark plugs to start with, so you take it out on the road, and you get a steady speed, just a cruise. You don't want to be accelerating or decelerating. You want a steady speed. Let's say 40, 45. Most people drive their cars. What most of the time you spend you're driving your car, you're doing 50 miles an hour, unless you're on the highway doing, going like crazy. So you go steady speed for a couple miles, and then you shut the car off. You don't want it to come to an idle. Shut the key off. Don't lock the steering. You only have to turn this key back one step, pull to the side of the road out of traffic, pull the spark plugs out, and see what they look like.
All right.
And the reason you don't idle is because all of our cars idle rich. So if it idles for a little bit, it's going to start to soot up.
I'd like to add, since
Go ahead.
I'd like to add, since we're talking this scenario, troubleshooting scenario, I have a 54 TF. It doesn't last more than about 10 minutes over 45 miles an hour, and it bogs down and conks out. So can I assume that maybe this is the approach? It's going to be a fuel problem, that this is the approach I should take?
Your fuel most likely is boiling, and because it probably has maybe some corn in the tank, ethanol. What is interesting about the whole boiling, because we have to deal with it all the time here in Florida with the boiling fuel, the cars that won't run in traffic, they won't restart when they're hot. It's just an everyday occurrence in Florida, and we have to learn what to do about it. And what's very interesting is when you get that TD where it's acting up and you've been stuck in traffic and it's starting to do that bad running stuff, you can immediately shut the car off and you can remove both bells, okay, and pistons, so you can see the jets. With the car off, you will see fuel boiling up the jet.
But this is because of an ethanol.
Because the fuel is boiling.
I
Bubble point.
I purposely use ethanol free or Jet A.
You'll still see it.
Sorry, 100 low lead.
Right.
I had access to 100 low lead at an airport, but I more often when I'm on the road am using 95 ethanol free.
Right.
So I shouldn't be having the boiling problem.
It will.
So tell me again, you drive it for 20 minutes or whatever it is, and it just ceases to run. So when does it start to run properly again?
I have to shut it down and sit there for a little while, maybe 20 minutes, and then crank it back up and I can get it home.
Yeah,
but it's about a 10-minute drive.
It's fuel boiling, and you can prove it to yourself. The next time it's doing it, take the bells off, and you will watch the fuel come flying up the jets like a geyser, like Old Faithful. And that's the bubbles of oxygen exploding and pushing the fuel up the jets.
So you got to try to keep the heat off the carburetor float bowls, okay? Because the carburetor body itself is evaporating gasoline, and it's ice cold. So there's no heat that comes up the intake manifold and conducts itself into the carburetor body. That's not happening. It's the heat that's getting onto the float bowls. Conduction, convection, radiation. So I'm telling you, there's no conduction. Convection, yep, absolutely, because it's coming off the radiator, and radiation because there's no heat shield. So you might try two things. Curto, he's got these koozies, these asbestos socks. They're not asbestos, it's something or other, with R400 fabric on them, something or other. And you put them around your float bowl with some zip ties or something, and that keeps the heat off from the radiator and from the exhaust manifold. You can also buy a heat shield. I don't know who sells them. I know Brown and Gammons in England has them. You can buy a heat shield that keeps the radiant heat from the exhaust manifold off.
We make our own for the T's.
Okay.
It's stainless steel plate, and it covers it. Basically, you're trying to deflect the heat away from the float bowls. So you can make a stainless steel plate, cut a notch for the throttle linkage, or just to have two individual plates, because you don't have to cover the carburetor, it's just the float bowls. And then you hold them on with two of the intake manifold studs that stick out in the air. And we've had some good luck with that. I actually keep a little.
Now, who's having that problem?
I was, and
who's
so
I can't see.
This is Mike Schaus.
Mike, are you coming to Saturday's meeting?
I'm in Wellington, New Zealand.
Oh, never mind. I said I have some aerogel insulation you could zip tie on there, and that would tell you. But I guess
so Mike, if you're calling from Wellington, New Zealand, what's that car behind you? I see the MG on it, but I don't recognize that at all.
That is my newly ordered Cyberster dual motor EV MG.
Okay.
For what it's worth, just to entertain for a moment, I live here 6 months out of the year,
I want to see this.
I didn't have a particular over passion to buy this car until I sat in it, till I drove it, until I did the exchange rate, which made this a $70,000 MG that goes 100K in 3.2 seconds. and I own every kind of MG. I own quite a stable of MGs, and I've got cars here and cars in the States. I got vintage MGs, and I've got now a Cyberster. And I'm going to tell you something. the full range of the experiences is absolutely fantastic.
That is amazing. Three and a half seconds, would you say?
3.2 seconds, I get to 100K.
Oh, my
And
gosh.
and I
100K.
fly airplanes, I fly fast airplanes, but let me tell you what, the G-force in that car, when I'm out here at 2 a.m. in the morning on the motorway, when nobody's around, it's an absolute awesome experience. Look, I want to jump back to something else.
Hey,
John,
before you go there, I had the same issue on my twin cam as you did, and it wasn't fuel, and it was really surprising. I found that there was a wire hidden way back behind the master cylinders where a mouse had eaten away at most of it, and the wires oxidized. And when it got hot, the resistance in the end, the heat from the engine bay caused the resistance to climb, and I wasn't getting 12 volts to the to the coil.
Okay.
I changed everything out because it can't be that little white wire, but it was. And when I changed that out, but the same exact symptoms.
We will keep that in mind. That's really
well,
good.
and I actually had a friend here with a twin cam, MGA twin cam, and he spent a year going through every square inch of that, everything under the bonnet. And it ended up being a very similar scenario that you just described. It was cutting his car out after about 20 minutes of driving. I still wonder whether or not I've got a carb problem, that it's maybe needles. That's why when you guys were talking about the needles a while ago, I was listening somewhat intently. I still am not convinced that this is a heat problem, because I've taken the car out on runs late in the day. I know this is it was Texas, but it was late in the day when it was cool temperatures, and I'm still not sure if
Do you have a
heat problem.
do you have a tact well that you can hot wire underneath the bonnet and just hook it to the coil and just watch? Coils also overheat. They get hot and quit making spark. And the only way to check that out real quickly is just take a spark plug wire off, right when it kills, and all you can do is compare it. How long is the spark? How long is the spark when it's stone cold in your garage, and how long is the spark when it's hot?
Well, I'm going to run that spark plug test that Carl was just describing, and start with that and see what kind of plug results I'm getting after the drive, especially when it conks out, because if it's totally laden with fuel, with petrol, then I think I got a carburetor adjustment problem.
Here's the two tests. The one I mentioned, when it shuts off, immediately take the bells off and the pistons and see if there's fuel boiling up. If there's fuel boiling up, it's overheating the float bulbs. The next test is how to get the car started before that 20 minutes time of waiting. And here's how you do it. Once it's shut off, and I call this the Slurpee syndrome, because here in Florida, people go in to the 7-Eleven, they get a Slurpee, and when they come back out, their car won't start. And so the way you do this, and it's called clear flood mode. Modern cars have a clear flood mode where if the car floods, you step on the gas pedal to the floor, it shuts the injectors off, and then they can crank it, clear the extra fuel out of the manifold. On an SU car or any carbureted car, if you put the gas pedal all the way to the floor and hold it there while cranking, no extra fuel will be drawn up the jet. The fresh air will come through, it will flush the fuel that is boiled into the intake manifold and throw it out the tailpipe, and within a few seconds of cranking, the car will start up. And then you can take your foot off the gas, feather it a few times, and the car will start, and you won't have to wait that 20 minutes. We call it the Slurpee syndrome.
A variation on that same theme, as long as there are two people in the car, somebody gets out, unscrews the dampers on the suction chambers, angles them so it traps the pistons, lift the pistons all the way up, and then it'll start.
Yeah.
If that's what's going on.
With the full throttle as well.
Yep.
Yeah. You're just trying
Look, I've got two more quick questions because I don't want to tie. When you were talking about the supercharger application on the 79 MGB, or well, you said MGBLE. I can't remember what year you said.
Yeah.
What was there had to be an alteration to the exhaust system? What was that?
None.
None.
Are you saying the LE exhaust system will be a bolt up to the?
No, not the header. You'll need an early cast iron header.
When you say early cast iron
you'll need
header.
an early cast iron manifold.
62 through 74.
Okay.
Okay,
then
because
you'll
I've
need,
got an
then you'll
I
need
put
the
an
header
English
pipe.
I put an English head on this 79 MGBLE and plugged all the ports for all the air pump stuff.
Uh-huh.
So that head should work, right?
Oh,
Oh
absolutely.
yeah.
But you'll just need a cast iron manifold with a double outlet and a double outlet header pipe. And then you go right the rest of your stock system.
It's stock system. Okay.
Right.
And last but not least, John, I want to say to you, last year at the Katy NAMGR, you found a problem that had persisted for several years on a car that, well, you had actually done the ground up restoration on it. But I want to thank you because I so enjoy the fact now that when I pull the starter, it doesn't continue to catch. I don't know if you remember, you probably don't, but it was the starter cable was slightly catching on under the bonnet at the bracket point. And you caught that, which I had spent months trying to figure out and never could. So I want to thank you for that. I'm going to shut up
Very
now.
welcome. The fun thing about that Katy meet was the three young guys. The three young guys that came in all those clapped out MGBs. Those guys were like, yeah, the guy says, I bought this MGB for $500 and the engine, it had a rod knock. So took that engine out, put another engine in, and there's something wrong with that one. So I took that one out and put another, just, an old car, a cheap car. And they came in, they didn't charge them anything to come on the field and probably gave them awards for being the youngest people there. They were so enthusiastic.
Those guys are great. And I'll tell you what, here in New Zealand, we've got a problem in that while we have a fairly large membership at the moment across 4 MG centers, nobody is under the age of 65. And we are with no youth. And the one thing that's great going on in the Houston Club, and Joe and others know, who we're talking about, but those guys have been very enthusiastic and very creative. And I just hope like hell
That's
car clubs around the world.
The Hudson twins.
Just never.
John, they are wonderful kids.
Give money to participate, give them parts to participate, and never piss them off.
We have said forever that one of the thoughts we have at our level of just for Houston is that we should create a legacy program where it is a gift that every single member can give a membership to a club if you're as long as you're under a certain age. And I'm a fundamental believer that if we don't change, and guys like Michael and I that have gray in our hair need to recognize.
In our beard.
I know, but we really are. We're a dying breed organization, and we've got to find a way to get people 40 years and under to be as enthusiastic as we are about these silly little bitty cars.
Well, good.
Especially T-Series, because I believe even in the States, we just don't have any youth in the T-Series ownership. And I see the price of the value and the price of the cars coming down.
Yeah,
I don't see the demand in buying, and certainly not by youth.
Well, and I mean, very sincere, think about it. We're having too many people where dad has got the car, and we're dealing with this right now. We have a donated automobile to our Houston club. Rich is going to do his dead level best to be able to fire it up and get it going. The reason it's donated and it sat in that garage for 30 damn years,
32 years,
is because no child within the family wants it.
Oh, there is no child in that family.
Give it to
The
those
guy,
kids.
the guy made a present of his girlfriend. He puts a stereo in it, and he wiped out the electrical system.
I get it, but the point is we have too many of those repetitive, not just in Houston
So,
clubs.
so get those young guys to come to a meeting
Yes.
and say, bring your friends, and within that group, not auction it off, just award it by lot.
Well, John, here's my bill. Okay. Larry Norton, think about it.
Yep.
Larry ought to take these kids and somehow get them to Crystal Lake, Illinois, stand them up somewhere and tell on a national level, this is what we need across the nation.
Yeah. Well,
in our club.
you've been to
The world. Across the world.
a BPO meeting, a BPOE meeting lately, Benevolent Protective Order of the Elks, or
Yeah.
everybody.
It's octogenarian.
My best friend from high school is the president of the Mid-Atlantic Radio Collectors Club. And he says, you think you got a problem with age? They're all octa and nonagenarians. We still have septuagenarians.
Wow.
So it's
Hey, I want to put you back on topic. I got a text from one of our club members.
Yeah.
And just let me read it to you. And then if the rest of the Houston guys can help remember, it's from Bill Seisman, and he'll be at our meeting Saturday. He says, oh, where is it? He has lights. Sorry, but if you could ask Mr. Twist and Glenn, I have no brake lights, no turn signals, but I have parking lamp headlights, high
What
beam
year?
hazard, all that's working. 72 B. And I have no brake lights and no turn signals.
He's got two problems. He's got his hazard switch. You got to snap it off 100 times to get the turn signals to work, and his brake light switch is bad.
Oh, the
What do you
hydraulic
think, Glenn?
switch?
Well, if he has a tachometer, then it's not a
But-
fuse or a power.
But
Okay.
Rich said something worked. What worked?
Oh, shoot. Let me turn it.
Not the
I
headlight.
have no brake lights and no turn, but I have parking lamp and headlights and
Yeah,
high
don't
beam.
let that fuse you because
High-
those
and
aren't
hazard
related.
is all working.
Well, that's not related. What he has to have for brake lights and turn signals, he has to have the second from the bottom fuse live, which also powers the windshield wipers and the tachometer
The
and the
gauges,
gas
all
gauge
the
and the
gauges.
temperature gauge. So if all the gauges and the wipers are working, then it's a different type of diagnosis. If all of that is dead, then it's fuse box related or downstream. So it's kind of you gotta know what else may not be working to really pinpoint the diagnosis.
Help me remember that, fellas. And when you see Bill on Saturday, well, maybe we'll all get part of this right.
Yeah. If all of those things I just said are dead, then he should just pop the fuse out, tighten the terminals, put a new fuse in there, and see what happens.
Okay.
Because that's the common circuit. Anything that comes, the electrical systems, they say complicated. They say Lucas. Well, it's the simplest electrical system on any car on the road today. You've got a fuse for stuff that turns on with the key, and you got a fuse for stuff that is on all the time. And then you got two fuses. One of them, the other two fuses run half of the parking lights, and one fuse runs the other half of the parking lights. And they even make that simple to diagnose because they X the fuses.
Not always.
Well, usually they do.
I love
But
these
in
guys.
a lot of cases, they X the fuses where one parking light fuse is bad. It'll be the left front and the right rear. So it's a very simple. There's really not much to go wrong with those cars.
One of the things too, I'm sure, is the corrosion on the terminals.
Yeah.
The corrosion is the thing that hits. Now, wires don't go bad. It's people want to buy a new harness. Well, because stuff doesn't work, the wires don't go bad. The bullets get corroded and the sleeves break because they're spring steel. And once they've lost the ability to grab the bullet, then you have a voltage drop and you have an intermittent thing. So it's always at the connector.
You can if you're frugal, or even cheap. You can get a 22 brush for cleaning a 22 rifle, put it in the end of your drill, and take those Lucas female connectors and go zzz, zzz, zzz,
Oh,
and
great idea.
it cleans up the inside of them. Or you can just buy a handful of them. And when I'm buying handfuls of stuff, I use British wiring and
British wiring, yeah.
Valley, Pennsylvania.
Yeah. They actually Moss orders a Lucas connector kit, a starter kit. And that was something that I introduced to British Wiring years ago. Hey, make a kit with 20 of these, 20 of those, 20 of those, 20 of those, and a crimper, and offer it for sale. And then all of a sudden Moss is doing it. And that's the way to go. Now, when you push that bullet into the sleeve, it has to be really hard, and you have to really swear a lot. That's how hard they're supposed to snap in.
Do you use the tool?
If they just push in.
I have the tool, Lee, if you need to borrow one.
If they just push in and just pull out, you're going to have a failure of that circuit eventually.
So I took a pair of I got the poor man's paddle to push the bullets in. I took a pair of channel locks and cut a slit in each of the jaws, and then you just put it up on either side and squeeze, and it pushes them home.
That's probably better than the Moss tool because you can expand it wider, and you can get those surfaces parallel.
Yep.
And
yeah, the Moss tool is not the best way, but
I'm going to bail out. My granddaughter is here, and I'm going to go make dinner for her.
Okay,
all right, Joe. Good.
Enjoy. John, thank you. And Glenn, thank you. Great presentation.
Hey, thanks.
Really,
very enjoyable.
Very
Thank
much.
you.
Crystal, you haven't said anything yet. You out there? Well,
Yeah, I'm out here listening to you guys. I'm up here in Central Texas. Hello down there, South Houston area.
Hello.
All right. Crystal's always on my Zooms that I do
oh, wonderful.
twice a month.
What a car does she have?
I got a 70 MGB split bumper.
Oh,
the one bumper you can't buy new.
It's the one bumper I like.
And help me out. Like two years ago, you had that on a rotisserie, didn't you, Crystal?
Sure did. Had it stripped all the way down, bare metal. Had somebody come in and sandblast it because I'm tired of sandblasting. Right? And rebuilt the whole thing. The only thing I didn't do was Ron Redding did my engine rebuild. Rob Medinsky did the distributor. What's his name out there in Pennsylvania did the gearbox. Dick Mortz, right?
Oh, okay. All right.
And Dave Braun did the carburetors. Other than that, I did the painting.
Dave Braun, he does work for other
else.
people?
What's that?
He did. I don't think he's doing it now.
His TD website was so instrumental to me when I restored that right-hand drive. He was so meticulous in the pictures and the steps he took. It was really wonderful. I was hoping that somebody grabs that and puts it somewhere permanent.
I had a concept for getting the young people involved, and we did that here in St. Pete, and the local MG club actually got involved. And what we did is one of the club members donated a $1,000 check to the local high school shop class, and I donated a car, and then another car, and then all of a sudden this shop class has 9 MGB transmissions and 5 windshields and a shop full of MG stuff, and the kids just ate that up and had the greatest time with it, because all the teachers had to now run down to the shop because they wanted to see the MG like the one they used to own when they were going to school.
Oh, funny.
And they had a great time. And I got 3 apprentices out of doing that. The kids that would work in the summertime and then graduated and came on board as mechanics. And it was pretty interesting. I gave them $1,000. Another club member gave them $1,000. We gave them a couple cars, and it got them going. Now, did it really work? Did they ever finish the car? No, because they have to work on it 37 minutes at a time, twice a week. But it got the interest up, and and it did help a little bit.
Thank you for sharing that story. That is an excellent, excellent story to hear. Yeah.
I proposed to our local club in Grand Rapids 20 years ago when my kids were in high school. I said, well, why don't we have a drive-in MG day? I don't know, the logistics and the lawyers and the insurance, all that kind of crap. But the bottom line is that the kids meet you after school, and you got 10 MG owners there and 10 MGs and 10 kids, and you go around the block, go around the block twice, and you show them how to shift and why you shift, and then you put them in the driver's seat and tell them to be back in an hour. And one of our club members, who's now passed away, said, they'll wreck our cars. You can't it's really hard to wreck a gearbox and a clutch and a B, for as much abuse as they'll take a lot of abuse. And how else are you going to get people interested in the cars? What, because they look cool? What does that even mean? Get their butts in the driver's seat and go out and drive it and have a good time. That's, and if you're sitting in the passenger seat, they're going to be terrified of driving, and it isn't going to be fun at all. So you have to let them go. Certain amount of trust there. There's no
Well, you might want to sit in the passenger seat with them while they're driving.
only once around the block,
Just
maybe,
the first time.
maybe,
The
maybe.
first time,
But
right?
you got to let them go by themselves, or else they can't experiment. So
Hey, John.
yeah,
It's Scott Hardy here. I have the 72 and had it for 10 years now. Love everything about the car, except for one thing. I've always had a shudder in the brakes, and I'm on my third set of rotors, so it's not a warped rotor, whatever that is. I've reset the brakes, resurfaced the brake disc by stopping, running it up to speed, and bringing it down quickly 5 times in a row.
does the steering wheel shake? Does the steering wheel shake when you hit the brakes?
The steering wheel shakes. It only happens at high speed. I mean, like 50 miles an hour and higher is when you notice. But it's happened with 3 sets of rotors, so it can't really be the rotors.
No. So that's why I'm asking if the steering wheel is shaking. When you say shudder, is it pulsing? Is it pulsing when it stops?
It's pulsing when it stops. Yeah.
Brake drums?
A rear brake can cause a pulsing pedal. Okay. It's hard to diagnose because everybody wants to blame the fronts right away, of course. But rear drums can be out of true and cause a pulsing pedal. So usually, if you feel it in the seat or the back of the car moving, it's more of a rear. If you feel it in the steering, it's more in the front. Most rotors, when they're warped, you will notice as you're coming to a stop, the last few feet of coming to a rolling stop to a light, you'll feel the car do this. The whole car.
Yeah, that doesn't happen. It's very smooth.
Okay, and that's usually a rotor. But if you're getting a high speed, a higher speed kind of a pulsation, don't rule out brake drums that are not true.
You got wire wheels or disc wheels?
The mini lights, you see.
Are they torqued with a torque wrench, or you put them on with an air impact?
No, they're torqued to 65 pounds.
Okay. That's good. Excellent. Yeah, that's critical. That's good.
Why do you ask that as a function of vibration?
I can answer that because I did it on the BMW once. The wheel was actually, well, I didn't do it. A tire shop did it. The wheel was actually not mounted square. They put it on with an air gun, and it was a kilter. So,
okay. So
and it will warp a rotor too if you got uneven torque on those nuts. It'll warp the rotor.
So instantly. Really nothing to do with the clamping load, but with the way it was done, the quality of the job.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's clamping load as well. It's clamping load as well.
Well, once it's true, the amount of torque or clamping load on there isn't going to affect whether it's seated properly.
But
What you're
if you start it and tighten it up and you run one up all the way tight and then
Yeah, I
start
understand.
to get the others, then it's going to be it's going to cock. You know.
Thank you.
So
Now-
a quick question about the brakes. Is it possible that a brake rotor can be mounted so it's not square on the axle hub stub?
Well, yeah, and that's why when you true a rotor, you true it on the hub.
Mhm.
You don't true it by itself. It's bolted to the hub and you put it in the brake lathe. We have a brake lathe, and you true it on the hub. And it's not unusual to put a brand new rotor on a B and have it have run out before you put it in the car. We put it on the lathe and make sure that it's true, and even a couple thousandths.
But
Now,
that-
believe it or not, a fingerprint on a brand new rotor will make it shimmy. Grease, you can't touch rotors with your fingers or with grease. And after we're done cutting a rotor, for example, we have to wash it with soap and water to get the little fine particles of cast iron out of the pores of the rotor. Can't touch it with your fingers. Soap and water to rinse them off. They have to be scrupulously.
Are you the only one on the planet who does that?
I mean, probably.
I've never heard of that. I never had a problem.
Well, there you go. That's why John and I.
Hey,
get along
I
so well.
have one last question. I hope you don't mind before we go. John, Glenn, twin cam, the pilot light on the gauge, meaning generator is not charging, comes on one day and not the other. 2 weeks it'll be on. Oh shit, I got a problem here.
It comes on at speed, or it comes,
Yes, it's on all the time, or it's
well,
not
then
on
that
all
means
the
it's
time.
not charging. So that's either the generator, oh joy.
But why
or-
would it do it one day and not the other is the question.
Because it's
Because
made by
the
Lucas.
Okay.
Now I keep in stock voltage regulators that have been converted to solid state. And there's a company that was doing that, and they've kind of slowed down. I don't think they're doing anymore, but I talked them into doing the last batch for me, and they are rock steady reliable. And that's what I offer
So
people if
they're
they
a substitute for the coils.
How's that?
They're the A, B, C, D, E voltage regulator. It looks the same.
Yeah.
It is an original regulator housing. They
It's
just
just
take
got-
all the guts out of
it's
it
got
and put a circuit board in there.
Zener diodes in it instead of solenoids.
Yeah,
And you sell those.
I do sell them. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Worth a try, because the new regulators, even the ones that Moss sells that say
That's
adjusted
exactly what I
and
had.
tested, they're not. Because I'll tell you how precise these things need to be. If they're not adjusted just right, we just had a TR3 in just yesterday. I had to work on this. If we put our inductive ammeter on the battery cable and rev the car up, it read 20 amps. If we
Ooh.
put our inductive ammeter on the cable going to the amp gauge inside the car, it read 38 amps. And we adjusted the one little screw on that voltage regulator, which is the same regulator. I moved it, I don't know, half a degree, and both amperages matched at 20 like they're supposed to. So they're very sensitive, those manual voltage regulators, very sensitive.
And the ones you sell, don't worry about it. They
You put them in
come
and
out
you
of the
go.
box.
Yeah.
As long as the voltage in your car, you observe the polarity.
Oh, these are negative ground. You can't have positive.
Yeah,
earth in
I'm
the
negative
car.
ground on that
Yeah.
car.
Now, and of course, generators go bad all the time too. Now,
So
years
what, the name of
ago,
your business?
Glenn's MG Repair.
So, okay, that's easy.
Years ago, when we put generators on cars, it always got a new regulator. You never replaced one without doing the other. And that's what we did in the day when all the cars had generators. Like I did Volkswagens for years ago. You never put a generator in a new Volkswagen Beetle without putting in a new regulator.
And
They're
why?
that simple.
Why is that?
Because the first time your generator pulls more than 2 amps across the field, from some other problem, it burns out the armature, burns out the field.
Okay, it's
so the engine's
damaging.
done.
It's damaged one of those coils.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much.
And these
Hey,
days, the
I
armature
really
is in
appreciate
contact.
you guys coming on tonight. We'll talk to both of you
Now,
soon, I
let me
guess.
ask you a question about your twin cam. Do you have Thackeray washers underneath
Yes.
carburetors?
Yes, I do.
Okay, good man. Good
Yeah,
man.
yes.
That was the most common problem. That's what made all those engines fail years ago.
And a rubber neoprene O-ring that was machined into that to
Okay, excellent.
to decouple.
Excellent. Yeah, you got to keep the vibrations out of those carburetors on the twin cam. They found
I love
blew
that
them out.
car. I got it for a song, I think, compared to I found it on an eBay auction and no one else bid on it. It's God smiled on me that day.
I'll tell you my favorite twin cam story. I went to the 50th anniversary of twin cam, the show up in Pennsylvania a few years back, and there was 50 twin cams there. I mean, it was huge. And one guy had brought his twin cam, little Oriental guy, had shipped it in from Washington State. He was there by himself. We're going to go to a winery tour through the winding roads of Pennsylvania. So I asked him, "Can I go with you?" "Oh, sure, you can go." So I traveled with him. And we went to the winery tour and had lunch. And on the way back, I said, "Can I drive it?" No, he said, "Do you want to drive it back?" I said, "Well, that's why I came." So I could drive it back. And so we got stuck behind an RV on these little windy roads. And we're doing 30 miles an hour. And I can't get past this guy. And I can't get past him. And finally, there's an opening. And I knocked that thing down into second gear. And I put the pedal to the floor and just went flying past this RV as fast as that little twin cam would go. And the guy looked over and he had the look on his face of, he says, "You can do that?" I said, "Yeah, that's what they're for."
So I have to share two stories then. I don't know what meet we were at, John. You were giving your rolling, maybe it was Nashville, and I took it there. And there was a guy who just came up. He was staying in the hotel. He was an airline pilot. And I had my turn in this rolling tech session. I would think I third up. And you pointed to me, John, and goes his car. He goes, "Can I take a picture with your car?" I said, "Sure." He'd lost his father a week ago and was having trouble, mentally, emotionally. And I said, "Do you want to drive it?" And he lit up. And like you, he was gone for an hour. But yeah, he came back, but I made that guy's day. And he came out in his flight uniform, an hour later because he had to get to the airport and just thanked again. That was a really, really nice thing on that. The other thing is the problem I had. I had a lot of problems early on with it. And you'd be interested in this. I took it to an engine mechanic in Houston that I'd used before. And, as we get older, we develop issues. And this man, I think, was in the starting phases of dementia. He lost the gear between the crankshaft and the half shaft.
Oh dear.
Yeah. And he asked me where it was. I said, "What do you mean where it was?" And he said, "Well, I don't have it." I said, "Who undid the timing cover?" He said, "Well, we did." I said, "So where's the gear?" And John put me in touch with Lyle York's son. And Andy found one in South Africa. And that was sent to me. But now these gears are paired. They have to be meshed correctly. And they did. We did the test with the paper and everything. So I got that motor back. But there was the same guy. He said, where are the cam bearings? I said, "They're in the box." I said, "I got a set from a guy in England." He goes, "Well, they're not there." I said, "Well, where are they?" And he made this my problem. And the engine had been in that shop for 9 months, and it's time to get it out. I got another set of cam bearings, which are hard. It's hard to do, and I get the engine back, and there's the boxes of cam bearings. I don't know what was going on, but I get the checklist, and there's an empty box that we had talked about on 4 occasions. I said, "When you balance the crank assembly, please take it less than, was it a gram or something?" I can't remember the units. But he said, "Oh, that'll cost." I said, "That's just your time. There's an issue with resonance on this engine. I'd like you to do that." He gave it back to me without balancing the crankshaft assembly, which was probably the blessing for me, because this engine intimidated me because I didn't understand it. So I got it home and he gave me the invoice and I shorted him $500. He said, "You're a little short here," but I already had the engine in the truck. And I said, "No," I said, "I was going to eat that, but you lost a set of bearings in that gear and I'm still out money and you're out some now too."
I'm still out my cam lockers. You still have my
You
cam
gave them to me.
I did?
Yes.
Well, speaking of dementia. All right. Well, all right. Okay. Now,
All right.
now I know.
So I have an ending of the
Oh,
story.
yeah, let me finish this because you'll be
go ahead.
you'll be aghast. I take the motor apart and I take the assembly. I have it balanced for $100 somewhere in town. But when I took out, the thrust washers were trash, and he put them back in.
Oh, of course.
They were just trash. I look at them and they're scored. What is this? And the cam bearings, there was no white metal, there was no copper, there was scored steel. He put them in. None of the valve, what are those little niblets under the valves? The shims.
The collets.
It's supposed to be what, 15 thousandths or 18 thousandths? I can't recall.
Oh, the shims.
Yeah. Okay.
None of them were correct.
Yeah.
And they returned that motor to me in that state. So I was a blessing in the end because I had to learn it, you know, and I do understand it now and I can work on it, which is what I like to do. But, you know, it was a black hole and it was the unknown. Now she's my friend.
There was just a guy, Glenn's on Saturday. We had a tech seminar down here and a guy came by. He looked all of a later septuagenarian, probably pushing over to the next decade. And Glenn says, "Go on, tell him how fast you can drive that car." I said, "See where it says orange at 5,500?" And he goes, "Yeah." I said, "Well, you can run it right up to there." And I pulled out my iPhone where I've got a picture of me driving my MGA at 90 miles an hour at $5,000. And
Well,
he goes,
you shifted gears at 6. I was in your car. You just got it on a break-in, and I'm looking
but
at
anyway,
that look.
their
And what you
heights-
said is, "Oh, it's all right. They can handle it."
Yeah.
They lowered that color in the factory to stay out of warranty.
Well, this guy had just bought a beautiful LE, just a beautiful car. And he can I drive this over 55? I said, "Yeah, well, drive at 80 to 5 and 90, doesn't matter." And he looked at me funny. So I said, "All right, go ask John Twist." And John Twist,
because I'm the guy here, I'm the guy from out of town.
right.
Yeah.
The expert's the guy furthest apart or
Oh,
furthest
funny.
away from you. That's
You
how
were
it
going to
works.
tell a story, Glenn, and I interrupted you.
Okay, this is for the guy from New Zealand. This is the ending of the twin cam story. After I went flying past the RV, we got another couple miles up the road, and that twin cam shut down. It just blub, 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 blub. Pulled the side of the road, and he's like, "What?" I said, "Relax. Look at your watch. Wait 15 minutes." And that's what we did. And 15 minutes later, I did the full throttle, started up, and we went the rest of the way. So, so I think his car was a little bit boiling some fuel that day too in Pennsylvania.
Glenn and I talk to each other from time to time, and he'll call me when he's especially mad.
I need to go. It's 7 o'clock here. I
Right.
got my Sons of the American Revolution to sign in. All right, but
Okay.
thank you so much.
Hey,
Right. Good meeting
All
you.
right, good day.
and Glenn called me. He was driving an MGC, and it just playing quit. You know, at the stoplight, it just quit, and of course, it won't restart. In an MGC, and you get traffic around you, and oh my gosh, everything's so. He was ranting to me about it, but he went and got some gasoline, and poured it on the cylinder head.
I think you're thinking of somebody else. You already told me that story, and I have no recollection of that.
No,
You're
he's
thinking
got
of somebody
he's got
else.
dementia. So you told me, and then he got the high test gasoline and the 93 octane or whatever it is, and that didn't boil because that didn't have alcohol in it. So at least for that driving season here, it would work. So there's a book called Modern Fuels and Small Engines, something like that. I can't think of it right now, but it's I bought it when I was in England a couple of years ago, and it's they use the cheap, these companies that print books. It's like they select the font that uses the least amount of ink. It's like, oh, come on. It's just driving you crazy trying to read it. And it's all about TCs and TDs, and it's real heavy duty on the math and science.
There, is that it there?
Oh, Scott's
Oh yeah,
got it.
that's it. What's that called? No, Scott, you got to depress your key there to.
Classic engines, modern fuel.
Yes,
Ah,
thank you.
cool.
Yes,
That
yep,
might be good
yep.
reading.
And it's about T-types. I mean, you can.
You unmute him again there.
No, I can't. Yeah, anyone who wants to unmute themselves can. You can use that cursor on the bottom. There's so few of us left here. So, anyway, it's been real. Thank you. I'm sorry that I got my time sorted out. Somehow I thought it was going to be at 7 o'clock your time, which would be 8 o'clock my time, but I don't know what I did. I have a real hard time
Well,
calculating.
we had to work today for a change.
Just real quick, Glenn, where are you located?
St. Petersburg, Florida.
St. Petersburg. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And we're both available. If you want to call or ask a question or something. Glenn's got field service. I mean, they got he's got 9 guys working, and everything stags, tribe stags. There was a Sunbeam Alpine on the hoist today, and then any number of TRs and a midget 1500. So anyway, there are lots of stuff just in and out all the time, and Glenn's just used to just what works. My field experience slowed down a lot. I've been out of the running a shop for the better part of 10 years now, even though I'm still answering questions and doing stuff. But Glenn's got the modern answers. So.
Well, for me, I want to thank both of you for giving us this time today. I'm a Houston Club member as well as a Wellington Car Club member, and I just thought this was really great because John, you've always been very generous with your expertise, and I appreciate it from this side from the Southern Hemisphere. I appreciate it as well as when I'm in the Northern Hemisphere.
That 1960, I think about a 65 Jag ad for the E-Type said 0 to 60 to 0 in 10 seconds. That was fast. But but
this is 0 to 100K in 3.2 seconds.
And how fast will it stop? It can't stop that fast, can it?
No, but it has an extremely good braking system, and the engine. It's a dual electronic, dual motors.
Okay.
There's 2 versions. You may be familiar with the car. One version has just one motor, and the other has the dual motor. And anybody that's, in my opinion, if I was going to spend this kind of money, I might as well go for the dual version. And again, when I say this kind of money, it's costing me $72,000 US for this car. And in my opinion, that's a hell of a lot of car for the money.
You can't even buy a Ford pickup truck for that.
Right?
Well, I know, you're right, because I just did last year.
Are there any MG Metros left in New Zealand? Have you driven one of those?
We have lots of Metros here. There's one, but the guy that's the editor of the Wellington Car Club Bulletin, he must have, he's really big into the Metros, the 1100s. He's got, I don't know, 12, 15 of them in his front yard. But yes, we have a good representation of the gamut. Last year when we did the 100 MG celebration, you just wouldn't believe we had from the very earliest vintage MG all the way up to the later. We didn't get the Cyberster in because it wasn't available. It hadn't made it into New Zealand at that time. That was January of last year when we had the big celebration. We had every other model of MG represented. There's some great photography from that event.
And my wife has an 1100 4-door. that
There you
we
go.
stored for her. Yeah. I have two of the Daleks, the hydroelastic machines. We call them Daleks for obvious reasons, and I have two of them.
Yeah. Well, the catch is that while I've committed, committed to the car, the Cyberster, it's going to be I won't in my lifetime be able to get the car to the States. That's the only downside, is I would have liked to have been able to be one of the first people to bring the car into the US. But
You can bring it in on a visitor visa, can't you?
I can, but then I'm being restricted to the amount of time I can do that.
Yep.
And I'd like to be able to have the freedom to bring it over for as long as I'd like to
I
enjoy it.
understand. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very unique.
Well, thank you very much, gentlemen. Ladies, thank you, Crystal, for being here. And anyway, if you guys had got any questions, I'm on the web. Glenn's MG Repairs on the web. So
John and Glenn, thank you so much for this time.
You're welcome.
hey,
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
always a
Thank you.
pleasure.
Have a great evening.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Hey, thanks a lot. See ya.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.